Seeing none, I'll close the open portion of the meeting.
The mayor, she would have her hand.
Go ahead, Katie.
Katie Jones, 359 Undercliff Avenue, Edgewater. I really can't sit here and have people blame that we're in the minority of the council for Green Acres funding. That's impossible. These guys have sat on the council the last couple of years. It's your fault the park is closed. It's your fault the taxes are higher. And now you're fighting for what? You're fighting yourselves. I feel like holding up a mirror to the both of you. You're fighting yourselves. Last week you were all gung-ho to put the same guy on the field. The only one who spoke against it was the mayor. This week, all of a sudden, it's a big change. Why? Because those 50 people who spoke mumbo-jumbo didn't mean anything? Because that's what you said. They didn't mean anything. You were responsible for 12,000 others. So I guess somewhere in the week, something kicked in and something meant something. Now, this bid that you have is just for remediation, correct? Are we going to bring the park back to what it was before? Because it looks like it. A lot of people don't even know it's a park. A lot of people think it's a dump. Go out and talk to people, because I go out and talk to people. And I'm not even a council person. And that's another thing. You guys don't even know there are houses in Edgewater that people can't walk around. You take walks around town all the time. You go past different places. You don't know there are houses all over town that are broken up and disgusting, and we can't even travel about town. You should know, you're council people. But anyway, besides that, a lot of people don't even know that's a park anymore. There are people who have just come into town and they just think, oh, well, we have to go. There are people that are going to move. I guess you want that. They're going to move because we don't have a park to go to. So how much more is it going to cost to put that park back to what it was, with basketball courts and tennis courts, you know, and whether you decide on turf or not or whatever the deal is, how much more on top of that? Because this was all supposed to be done for $7 million, right? The whole package was going to be done. Now we're bonding out for more, now we have to re-remediate, and now we have to ask again probably at a later date, and I would like to know who's in mind for that job, to add the amenities. How much extra will that cost? And I also would like to ask, in Montvale, Mr. Boje, you do have a give and take because they're televised, and it's probably best to answer the questions as they come up because none of you write the questions down, and you answer maybe 5 or 6% of the questions. You don't answer the questions. That man was here last week. You didn't answer his question last week, and you're probably not going to answer it this week. You have to answer as the questions are asked because then people know what the answers are, and then they can make a fair and balanced and qualified decision. Wait until the end and picking and choosing who you're going to answer. That's not democracy at work. And if you were really proud of what you were doing, you would answer the questions immediately. So how much more for the amenities?
You'll have your answers, Katie, when your 5 minutes is up.
Nobody knows?
Not included.
Okay. You know what? How much time do I have left? How much time do I have left? I defer to whoever wants to answer the question, my extra time. You can answer it right now. You don't have to wait till the end.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, I'll close the open portion of the meeting. Tim, could you,
Yes, briefly. In terms of Mary's question, her first question, Waterside was not allowed on the project before it had DEP approval. The initial project, the LSRP was terms. That project, as the LSRP, they had the discretion to determine that the historic field they had located had been removed. So it's an entirely different issue than the subsequent issue once the hazardous material was placed on the property, and that brought it under the jurisdiction of the EPA and required a SIP to be submitted.
Excuse me, can I just ask you to clear, when the stuff was moved on the property, what you meant by that?
When the PCB waste was disposed of on the property, that required now the jurisdiction of the EPA because the levels were above 50 parts per million.
Placed by Waterside?
Yes.
That's what I meant. That's what I need to clarify.
Yes.
Placed by Waterside.
Yes, exactly. So the bids are different also for those reasons. One bid was for the construction of the field and a removal of a very small amount of material that was all below 50 parts per million. And the other bid was for the remediation of what's been terms of the litigation, I'm not going to go into litigation strategy, but the RICO issue is just being deferred. It was dismissed without prejudice, and we can engage it at any time. We're going to wait till we conduct discovery rather than engage in very costly motion practice at this time. So if ultimately our discovery determines that we have a cause of action, all we do is have to file a simple pleading and we can reinstitute it.
Tim, before you go, I think there was a follow-up on how many cubic yards were initially, or tons, cubic yards or tons. I've known we've switched back and forth on that, but I thought I heard Mary Hogan say she thought 300 cubic yards of material had to be removed initially. That was going to cost $7 million. How did we get it down to $5 million?
Yeah, that's not the material,
that's
the whole project.
Right, I don't think we're talking, but I think the quantity of material to be removed is basically consistent with what terms initially calculated, but it was the difference between the higher levels of contamination, which is the red material as opposed to the blue material. With further refinement, we were able to further reduce the areas of the higher contamination because obviously we did 1,500 samples and we were able to isolate it. So that was the additional testing that allowed the cost of the removal to go down. Is that essentially the
Yes,
case?
completely accurate.
It's not true.
Okay, one other question that I know we received from Mary, I believe, was the first bid came in at $4,979,450. The second came in at $5,687,000, $687,230.
Slow down, slow down.
Mary, just say this right, take one.
$6,065,215.
Oh, it wasn't in the one that was published, sorry. I mean,
Phil, Raj Bandari had asked about the default and the rezoning. If you-
Yeah,
What
I
happened?
did write down, he had asked what was our policy for defaults with the borough under the contract. And we have declared Waterside to be in default, and tonight we have finally terminated the contract with them. So therefore, our policy and our decision tonight through the assistance of special counsel is we are going to pursue the damages that the borough has suffered as a result of Waterside bringing contaminated material onto the site. The contract we had with Waterside did involve a time of the essence clause, which required that contractor to complete the project within a certain amount of time. And there are damages that could be pursued, and they are being pursued by our council against Waterside and other parties that have been identified as responsible for this. So that is our policy. Our policy is to continue to pursue those claims. He did ask a question about properties that were rezoned, Mayor, and can the borough deny contracts to the defaulting contractor? I think there was kind of a double question there. And I'm just going to do the best I can to answer the question. If the contractor owns other properties in town, those are private properties that he's entitled to develop if he chooses to develop them. As far as what our policy would be going forward in terms of awarding Waterside an additional contract, I believe the governing body has said they would not do that. The reason I'm not sure, but as far as this project is concerned, that the borough is hiring an outside contractor as the lowest bidder to complete the remediation, and I think that's what our decision tonight has been.
I think just to tag on to that, if there's a question, will the amenities be, if the question is, will Waterside have anything to do with this with amenities, the answer is obviously no. We're not there yet, but it's not going to happen. So it's either this company, because it is a third piece of the puzzle we have. And the other question was, is this amount for red and blue? Yes, it is.
Right, both.
Okay, so that, and then the third piece, the amenities, that is still outstanding, but at least my vote would be for anybody else, for him to go in and do that. As far as the gentleman's question, does he get a shot at anything else, any other work in the borough moving forward? As a policy, we don't have it, but practically, I don't
Well, the
see it.
law would allow him, but the borough has discretion, to not award it to somebody.
Are you ring fence Waterside alone or any affiliations with Waterside?
Well, I don't know, I don't know how to answer that question. Right now, we're dealing with Waterside construction, and we have terminated them tonight, and they are not going to be involved in the remediation of this project going forward. Another question was asked, why was there a change in the borough's decision to award the bid? And I think as Tim Carson said, that we were under a contractual obligation to conduct a good faith mediation with the defaulting contractor. The local public contract law requires us to do that, and our contract required us to do that. So in a good faith effort to try to resolve the problem like anybody would do when there is a breach of contract, we engaged the services of a retired Superior Court judge, Judge Mecca, and he did use his best efforts to help try to resolve the problem, because one of the benefits to the borough is we would save this money that we are about to spend on the successful bidder here tonight. But that did not work. We were not able to reach a satisfactory resolution with the defaulting contractor to the satisfaction of the borough. So that resulted in the mediation being terminated, which now allowed us to go forward with the award of this bid tonight. And
Mr. Mayor, I think it should also be noted that it's somewhere between 5 and 6 weeks ago, when we were getting close to the submission of the bids and the process, that we had said that if in fact, we gave ourselves a deadline, if in fact the bids were in and this wasn't done, we had gone enough, and we would take the chances to move forward. We've done our obligation with regard to contract law and Judge Mecca and trying to get him to come forward, that we would end at that point. That happens to be tonight. And unfortunately, it's probably not the best night religiously to be doing it, but literally this is the first night under the amount of time you get to file for meetings to get it done. So that's all. I just want that point out.
you know, Mayor, in the collective judgment of all of the professionals that have been involved in this, it was extremely difficult to put the bid specifications together to allow the municipality to go out and receive bids. We did get over 30 interested potential contractors. We had 8 bidders who have bid on this project, and the collective judgment of the governing body was that this is of vital importance to start the remediation as quickly as possible. That has always been our goal. It is complicated, it is time-consuming, and I think everybody used their best efforts. And based on all of the legal requirements that we have to follow in order to award a bid, all the advertisements that are required for us to meet here at a public meeting, tonight was the earliest night that we could meet, and we felt that it was vitally important that we get this project going. And maybe one of our professionals can answer when we can expect to see activity out there with the trucks rolling and the excavation commencing. I don't know if, Tom, if you're able to answer that, what's your best estimate?
Yeah, well, assuming, contractually it's all worked out, I think they've committed to being out on site within 2 weeks.
Yeah. So the public can anticipate a lot of activity out there, and Greg, it may be important to notify the public why all this activity is occurring and what they can expect. But we fully anticipate that the remediation will commence as rapidly as possible, and that there will be a substantial amount of activity out there with excavating, trucks, transporting, and I believe all of the other safeguards that are required under the law will be put in place. But I can confidently say that we're on the way to seeing this field remediated after this long and arduous road that we've been down. We're confident that we're going to get it done. The original plan?
Plan being approved and bidding process working in tandem.
We had it wasn't approved originally, was it?
No, I think it was specific to this bid. Tom, I think one of the questions was, we were bidding and simultaneously seeking approval from both DEP and EPA for the plans, and how that sort of works in tandem.
Right, well, somebody mentioned it's really incumbent upon the LSRP for the project, which is myself, to approve the plan from the DEP side of things, because the DEP really doesn't approve plans anymore under the Site Remediation Reform Act. A self-implementing plan, or the SIP, was required to be submitted to the EPA, and that plan was approved by the EPA.
Any other questions? I think we got them all.
The amenities, how much extra?
Mike, could you,
As everybody knows, you're awarded a contract tonight for the remediation of the site, both the red and the blue numbers. Upon completion of the remediation, we'll have to enter back onto the site, shoot elevations. We need some direction from the governing body on whether it's going to be turf or grass. That'll have to be finally decided upon at that one time. And a revised estimate is going to have to be done. So sitting here today, we know that there's going to, all the amenities have to be put back in. The first bids that were out there are still public numbers that if somebody wants to try to estimate them. But for me to give you an accurate estimate of what it's going to take to put the amenities back in the site, the remediation has to be completed first, so we know the new elevations at the site. There are some walls on the site that may have to be redone or compromised during the remediation. So sitting here today, I don't have an exact number for you on the amenities, but we will work close with the LSRP as soon as the site is clean and safe for us to go on, my staff to go on. We'll go in and shoot the elevations, and we'll get an updated estimate to you and the public as soon as we know. So I don't have the exact number sitting here today because it's still a moving project, it's still a working project.
Mike, could you just give your name? I'm sorry.
Mike Neglia, Neglia Engineering Associates.
Thank you.
all right, I think we got them all. So I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Could you just tell me when you're going to put the thing on television? These proceedings?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Henry?
Yes.
Councilman Delory? Councilman Monty? Councilman Monty?
Yes.
Councilman Vidal?
Yes.
Councilman